Medical school is long enough, and there's residency after it. Why on earth would anyone go for an MBA also? Are they just degree collectors? Let's find out why this UCLA Drew MD MBA student is adding 2 years to her education and earning an MBA as well as her MD. Welcome to the 316th episode of Admissions Straight Talk, Accepted's podcast dedicated to graduate admissions and helping you approach the application process thoughtfully and successfully. I'm Linda Abraham, the founder of Accepted and the host of this podcast. My mission and passion is to help you show that you both fit in at your target schools and are a standout in the applicant pool. The result, you get a message one day that causes you to jump up and down shouting, "Yes, I'm in!" And not only in, but in at the best program for you. Now, when this show airs, it's going to be June 18th. And for those of you who have already submitted your MCAS, great. It's a wonderful time to be pre-writing secondary essays. For those of you who will soon submit your primary applications, you should have time between submission and verification to pre-write some of those essays. Doing so will save you time and enable you to respond to the secondary applications more promptly, which can help you show interest and time management, which may in turn help you snag that interview invitation. But you need the questions. Have no fear. Accepted has collected many of last year's secondary essay questions in a free downloadable guide that you can grab at accepted.com/316download. Accepted's The Ultimate Guide to Secondary Essay Questions from Top Med Schools provides tips as well as the questions, so we really have you covered. Our guest today is Trisha Mathelier, MD, MBA student participating in the Drew UCLA Medical Education Program. Trisha grew up just outside New York City and graduated from Harvard College in 2013. At Harvard, she majored in psychology, social and cognitive neurosciences, and global health and health policy. She took a gap year between graduation and started at UCLA in 2014. She intends to earn her MBA in 2020 and her MD in 2021. Trisha, welcome to Admissions Straight Talk.
Hi, thank you for having me today.
My pleasure. We're both laughing because we actually did part of this interview already, but I had forgotten to record it. So Trisha is being extremely gracious and patient with me, and we're going to...
It's okay. The practice
Okay. All right. Here we go. Can you tell us about your background outside of medicine, where you grew up, and what did you like to do for fun growing up?
Yes, so I grew up in a small suburb outside of Manhattan. Growing up, I was an only child. I was really active in my church and my youth group, so I did a lot of activities with them. I volunteered a lot through my church, but most of my time commitment was spent with my cheerleading team. I was on a competitive all-star cheerleading team for most of high school. Before then, I did competitive gymnastics and I also did competitive dance. So by the time I got to high school, I spent most of my days after school in the cheerleading or gymnastics gym, and then every weekend, my parents and I would travel all over the East Coast, up and down the East Coast for cheerleading competitions. We were on a nationally ranked team, which was really exciting and fun. And I definitely appreciate my parents for sacrificing almost every weekend of my high school career to take me as far north as Maine and as far south as Florida.
Wow.
So that was a really highlight of my just high school career. When I wasn't in the cheerleading gym or when I had a rare weekend off from competing, I just did what usual high school kids did. I had a lot of nature in the suburbs around me. So I did a lot of hiking. There were lakes by my house. I explored, I don't know, whatever high school kids do. You just hang out with your friends. I didn't have as much downtime because I spent most of my time with my teammates. So when I did have a free moment, I just really enjoyed just being a kid and just hanging out with my friends. We would go to the beach a lot, go to the lake. Just your typical suburban New York suburb high school life.
What influenced you?
One thing though.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say one thing that I really prioritized in high school was just having fun. One advice, I don't even remember who told me this, but something that someone told me was, don't do things because they look good. Do things because you're passionate about them. And that was something that I really, really focused on. Like, I love cheerleading and I love gymnastics. And so I spent a lot of time doing it because I was really passionate about working with my teammates. And I think that really set me apart when I did apply to colleges, and it was something that came up in a lot of my college interviews. And so that's something I would recommend to others as well, is like don't do things because you think it'll make you look smart or give you a leg up, but like do things that you're genuinely passionate about, because when you talk about them or when you sit in interviews, people will see that passion and they'll know that you're genuine and not doing something just to like impress an interviewer or something. So
Just to get a box checked.
yes,
Right?
exactly.
Right. That sounds like
Yeah.
very good advice. Now, just to go back to my next question was and is, what experiences convinced you wanted to be a doctor? I somehow suspect it wasn't cheerleading.
Yeah, no, it wasn't cheerleading. So growing up, I had a really close relationship with my pediatrician as a child. His name was Dr. Berzin. Unfortunately, he passed away, but he was really close with me and my mother and my family. I believe he also was the doctor to some of my cousins as well. And after every appointment, he would bring me into his office where I could pick a sticker or a lollipop, and he had a wall of all his diplomas and awards and certificates. And I would just look at them and I was like, Dr. Berzin, like, you are so smart. Look at all these awards. And he was like, you are smart too. Like, you can be a doctor if you want. And I was like, okay, well, I want to do what you do. Like, you get to talk to kids and make them feel better. And he told me that one day I would have a diploma of my own. And that was when I first was like, I'm going to be a pediatrician, without fully knowing what that meant or what the process entailed. As a child, my mom was a nurse, and she eventually went back to nursing school to advance her nursing degree to become a registered nurse. And as a single mother of an only child, there were times where she didn't have a babysitter, and I remember going with her to like some of her lectures, and I was forced to just sit quietly and color in class, or I would go with her to the computer lab for her to like work on group projects, or she used to listen to these audio lectures. Her school would let her rent out VHS tapes that you could
Whoa.
play, and my mom would yeah, so this is a while ago, not even DVDs, VHS tapes. And my mom would have cassette tape recordings as well as her lectures. And so she used to play them nonstop in the house as if it was like music. And there were times in the tape where the lecturer would like stop and ask questions to kind of keep the listener engaged. And one time there was a question, it was about failure to thrive in newborns and like jaundiced newborns. I don't even know why I remember this, but and the lecturer asked like an open-ended question for the listener to kind of answer, and I answered it and I was right. And my mom was just like, I think maybe like 9 at the time, and my mom was like, wait, how do you know this? And I was just like, oh, you play these all the time. Like, I listened to the lecture. And I was like, mom, like, I've been listening to your nursing stuff. Like, I think I kind of get it. Like, I could be a nurse. And my mom was just like, what? Like, and then and I was like, yeah, I don't know. Like, being a doctor seems like it might be too much work. Like, I see what you're doing for nursing school. Like, I can do that. Like, I like these lectures. I'm learning it. Like, I'll be a nurse. My mom was like, no, don't give up. You can be a doctor. And like, then I've been on the path to be a doctor. So that was initially what inspired me to go into medicine.
It's interesting, but we recently had on the show Dr. Laura Vader. It's accepted.com/310 if anybody wants to listen. And she had a very similar story, but her mother decided to go back to school, I think when she was 9, to become a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And she did the prerequisites and she went to medical school. And sometimes Laura went with her on rounds or to med school to classes. And again, it was tremendous influence, not only that she learned the material, but that her mother went back to school.
Mm-hmm.
It was both things actually, but anyway, and obviously did well with it.
Yeah, there was a few times where if my mom really didn't have a babysitter and I couldn't stay home alone because I was too young, she would bring me to work with her, and I was supposed to sit in the back room and like wait until like my babysitter or someone was able to pick me up. And every time, I like clockwork, as soon as she left, I would wait a little bit and then I would sneak out. And I actually had my like favorite patients, and I would like go to the lobby. I played piano, so I would like do little concerts for them in the nursing home. I would go to my favorite patient's room and like play with them. And then sometimes my mom would let me go with her to give medications, but not all the time because it really wasn't allowed to have like an 8-year-old running around the ward.
Gosh.
But that also really just inspired me, just seeing her provide care and just seeing how much the patients just like loved having my mom as their nurse. It just made me so proud, and it just made me want to be able to provide good care in the future.
Right. Now, you took a gap
Mhm.
year between undergrad and starting medical school. What did you do during the gap year? And are you happy you took the gap year?
Yes. So during my senior year of college, I started working for an NGO called Physicians for Haiti. At the time, they were designing a social medicine course, which is basically a course that focused on the social determinants of health for Haitian medical
Hmm.
students. It was a unique course though because it was partnered with a Haitian medical school, but they
Hmm.
invited international students from like the US and other countries to participate in this program. And so I worked during the academic year on working on the just interviewing the medical students for this program, setting up the curriculum, and organizing the logistics for how this program would work. Um, and in the summertime, we actually implemented the course. So I was actually in Haiti immediately after graduation, which was really fun. Although I did submit my med school apps from Haiti, which I don't recommend you do. Please submit your applications from a place with reliable internet. But afterwards, I came back to the US. During my senior year, I secured a job as a medical scribe, but I was able to push my start date to end of August when I came back from Haiti, which was really nice. So I got back, I had about a week break just to relax and do nothing. And then I started working as a scribe. I would recommend people to work as a scribe, maybe as a part-time job in undergrad if you can afford the time, or even during a gap year. It's a great way to gain clinical experience, clinical knowledge. In fact, a lot of like the personal anecdotes I experienced being a medical scribe, which is basically I was taking notes for the doctors in the emergency room so they could focus on patient care and they don't have to worry about the notes. But a lot of the documentation that I did was really relevant during my first year of medical school. Like during my pharmacology lectures, we would learn about a drug and I'd be like, oh, like I remember I wrote about this drug when I gave a patient with heart failure. And then it's like, you learn about the mechanism of action of the drug, and it just gave me like clinical relevance for why a lot of things were important in medicine, and it made learning a lot easier and a lot more fun. I would say I genuinely recommend that people take a gap year if they can. My parents were concerned that if I took too long of a gap year that I would never go to medical school, but that's why I compromised and applied to medical school immediately after graduation, so that way I knew I was still close enough to undergrad that I still had the support of my advisors, but at the same time, I still kind of had that built-in year while I was interviewing to kind of decompress and relax. If I could go back, I probably would have taken an additional 2 or 3 years.
Okay. All right. Now, why did you decide to attend the Drew UCLA Medical Education Program?
Yeah, so when I was applying to medical school, I knew that I wanted to work in urban underserved communities. I am very passionate about healthcare discrepancies that target like minority population and urban underserved populations. And the Drew UCLA program is actually specifically focused on this. So there's a partnership between UCLA, the David Geffen School of Medicine at UCLA, and Charles Drew University of Medicine and Science. And what happens is out of the total about 190 students that are UCLA Medical School students, about 24 are also enrolled at Charles Drew University. So I am part of that cohort. We do all of our lectures, most of our everything at UCLA, like the rest of our class. However, when we get to our third year, we have unique clinical opportunities. For instance, I did psych at a very underserved hospital in South LA. I did a unique internal medicine rotation in Long Beach. I did a lot of my rotations in the county hospitals. And so we just have a vast clinical experiences that allow us to work in the urban underserved and like really the underserved communities of Los Angeles. And we also have a required thesis or research requirement where you have to do research or community project that targets urban underserved healthcare or healthcare for the urban underserved. And knowing that this was an area that I wanted to focus my career on, it made sense for me to prioritize a program that allowed me to focus on this as a medical student. When I look back, a lot of the other medical schools that I applied to, like the ones that I really ranked higher, like my second and third choice, also had similar tracks with some sort of like urban scholars program or something of the sort. I just felt like the Drew UCLA program was just a lot more comprehensive and a lot more dedicated to the mission of working with urban underserved communities and focusing on social determinants of health. So yeah, that's
What,
basically
what
why.
Okay, what have you liked best? I mean, obviously those are the reasons you chose it. Since you've gotten into the program, what have you liked best about your experience at UCLA Drew?
Yes. So Drew is an HBCU, which is a historically Black college and university located in Compton. It is a very small school. They have a post-bac program, they have master's program, and they have undergraduate degree programs. But in terms of the medical students that are affiliated with Drew, there's only about like 25 to 30 of us per class. And so as a result, HBCUs are also known for just having a more close-knit family feel, and that is definitely the case at Drew because there's so few of us. I'm pretty sure most of the administrators and deans, like I have their number in my phone. If I ever have an issue, I have texted them. They're really accessible, they're really supportive, and it really feels like a family. Also, it's really great to be able to work with administration staff and other physicians that are really dedicated. Drew is in the heart of a very underserved community, and everyone there is passionate about serving that community. And I think it's really great to have those kind of mentors and role models. Whereas UCLA is located in West LA, it's a completely different patient demographic.
Oh yeah.
But of course, the UCLA name carries a lot of weight, and it's a research powerhouse. There's a lot of well-known and very well-respected people in a variety of specialties and fields of medicine. UCLA has afforded me the opportunity to be able to do any kind of research that I've wanted to do. They fully funded me to do a research project in Haiti. They covered all my expenses. So I would say the benefit of being at this type of program is that I don't really get to compromise. I get the experience of being at a smaller, close-knit school that has like that family feel. I'm very well supported by the faculty and administration at Drew, but then I also get the benefits of being at a larger institution and a research powerhouse like UCLA. And so I think you kind of get the best of both worlds.
So the next question is I think you're 100% right about the benefits. You have the benefits of this close-knit, close cohort, perfectly meeting your needs and you're matching your goals. At the same time, you're backed by this enormous university and very prominent medical school. So that's great. What would you like to see improved or changed in the Drew Medical program?
Yeah, I would say one thing that I would like to see that's different, which is something that I would like to see for all medical schools, is I would love to just see more diversity in terms of the candidates that are being accepted. There's a low number of underrepresented minorities. I think because of the Drew program, UCLA does have a little bit of a higher number of underrepresented people in medicine, which is great. But I would love to see just nationwide in medicine that we improve the pipelines for those that are underrepresented in medicine to have access to be able to attend medical school and to see the number of diverse doctors increase in the future. Another thing that I would like to see differently is I would like to see more women and more underrepresented in medicine as faculty. I feel like there are a lot of medicine to me is like a boys club, and so I would love to see more female surgeons, more female urologists, more female orthopedic surgeons. I think over time, especially with the trend now that women are basically equal in medicine, we're going to start to see that with future generations of residents and attendings. But I would like to see that transition happen a lot sooner.
Okay. Where are you at in your studies now?
Yeah, so I completed my third year of medical school, and right now I am now wrapping up my first year in the MBA program. So typically, if you do a dual degree program, the way it works at UCLA and most schools is that you For your second degree, usually that program is a little bit more flexible and allows you to kind of double up on your coursework so you can kind of finish in a condensed amount of time. I decided to do things completely opposite of how anyone has ever done it before at
That seems to
UCLA.
be a pattern.
Yeah. And I actually decided to take a complete leave of absence from medical school. And right now I am fully enrolled in the MBA program. So I'm doing the full 2 years non-accelerated track for my MBA. And I will graduate in my MBA, as you stated before, in 2020. And then I'll return to medical school to finish my 4th year and graduate with my MD degree in 2021.
Are you doing an internship, a business internship now? I mean, most students do an internship, yeah?
So so this summer, I'm actually really excited. I was afforded so many unique opportunities for internships. I could have worked with, I don't know if I could say the names, but like very well-known pharmaceutical companies, uh, PBMs, like
What's a PBM?
but I ultimately chose to go into so PBM would be something like they basically manage prescriptions, so like maybe like Express Scripts or something of the sort. I had opportunities to work with insurance companies, but ultimately I settled on care consulting. I'm not sure of my exact scope of type of project I'll be doing. I haven't received my assignment yet for the summer, but I will likely be doing something in the healthcare space, likely like a pharmaceutical client like biopharma. And so that's really exciting for me to be able to just see a whole different side of healthcare that's not clinical based. And I'm really excited by the opportunity to do this summer. Yeah, so
So
I'm really
yeah, that's great.
yeah.
And why did you decide you also wanted an MBA?
I guess rewinding back. So, as I mentioned before, UCLA is a research powerhouse, and I was afforded the opportunity to be able to go back to Haiti, which is where my ancestry and family is from. And I was able to go to Haiti for a summer to do to lay the foundation and start a research study, do a pilot for a research study that would be taking place over the course of a year. Um, After the study was finished, it was published. It was basically an acceptability and feasibility study that basically showed that HIV positive pregnant women in Haiti have high percentage of STDs, and that these women weren't being treated otherwise, but that they had a need to be treated, and that these women wanted to be treated, and that some of these women would travel up to 3 hours to get treatment. And after the results of the study was formed, I was like, okay, so we now know that there's, STDs in Haiti, and we now know that these women are willing to do whatever it takes to get to the clinic to get the medications to treat their STDs. How can we implement this? Let's talk to the Ministry of Health. Like, how can we create this large scale so this is at other clinics and widespread throughout the country? How can we expand this so it's also in rural areas, not just the capital, so that way the women don't have to travel 2 or 3 hours just to get antibiotics? And that's when I realized, like, I don't necessarily have the skills to be able to make these types of decisions, and that's when I started thinking, like, okay, I don't think I want to be the researcher that asks the questions. I think I want to be the person that sees, like, okay, this is what the evidence says, and how can I implement this? Um, Afterwards, I started my 3rd year rotations. And while I love the hospital, I love talking to the patients, I realized that I was really, really interested in like hospital, like logistics and like operational issues that took place in the hospital. So, for instance, there was one clinic that was notorious for, like, if you're in this clinic, you are not your usual 9 to 5. You will probably be there till like 7 or 8 p.m. And the reason was because the clinic had so many patients coming through each day, and it was understaffed. And I was like, I feel like there's a way that we can redesign the workflow of this clinic so that way we're not required to stay here until 8 p.m. Like, how can we maximize our resources and make this more efficient? But once again, I didn't have necessarily the skills and the background to really answer those questions, but I knew that those types of questions were the things that really interested me. I also also have always been very interested in entrepreneurship. I've always been like up to date on healthcare startups, digital health, and in LA, it's basically Silicon Beach, Santa Monica is like just footsteps away from UCLA's campus, and you always see a bunch of new healthcare startups popping up. And one thing that I noticed that was a trend was, okay, you're creating these really great gadgets and really great companies, but how do you actually measure impact? And how, like, this is great that you have this app, but does this app really save lives, or are you just making money? And all these questions combined made me realize that I'm very interested in the business side of healthcare. And medical school, while it gives you a great clinical foundation, it does not train you to be a leader or an innovator or a business leader. And that's when I decided I wanted to get an MBA.
Okay. Now, I think you're taking 5 years for medical school total, and you're taking 2 years for the MBA.
Yeah.
Why have you decided to essentially extend or elongate your education?
Yeah, so for medical school, I took time off where I was finishing some research.
Okay.
And then that was ultimately when I realized, actually, I used to think that I wanted to be like very academic, infectious disease research, hence why I was doing STD work in Haiti, and I did it, and I was just like, this is not what I want to do.
Okay.
And then for the MBA, I had the option to accelerate the MBA, but it would really limit my MBA experience in terms of the amount of connections that I could form with my peers, how involved I could be
The internship, you
in the
probably
program.
wouldn't have had an
And it
internship,
also,
right?
yeah, another thing, I wouldn't be able to do my consulting internship this summer, that was also another key determinant. Was I knew that at some point in my career, I wanted to be a balance of clinical and non-clinical, but I was like, I can't make that decision definitively until I see and really get to experience the non-clinical side and try to find a way to bridge a gap between the two. And another thing is that I think initially, like many pre-meds, when I was first interested in medical school, I had this timeline. I was like, okay, I'm going to graduate college in 2014. I'm going to finish medical school at this time. I'm going to be this years old. Then I'm going to do residency. I'm going to finish 3 years of pediatrics residency. And then I'm going to like do this. And I had this very strict timeline. And when I took a gap year, I realized that in the grand scheme, of things, it didn't matter. An extra year wouldn't make or break my experience. And I think I adopted that over time because I realized that, taking an extra 2 years to get an MBA has more value than it does negative consequences. And that in the grand scheme of things, once again, like furthering my education to get this other degree is gonna work out for the best, So
Sounds like in a very MBA-like way, you did a cost-benefit analysis.
yeah, I did. Also, I just
Right?
want to make sure I'm frozen because things are frozen on my end, but I want to make
Yeah,
sure
your
that
your
it's okay.
video is frozen, but your sound is coming through really well. So maybe turn off your video for 1 second and then try it again, though.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, the sound was good.
Oh,
Um,
okay, perfect.
so you have a blog. Let's just take this call in a different direction at the moment. You have a blog, 3,000 miles. Can you tell us a little
Yeah.
bit about it? When did you start it? Why? Why you still keep it going?
Yeah, so I started 3,000 miles. I believe I was in my second year of medical school. I honestly started it out of procrastination. I think I was supposed to be studying for something, and I've always been a blog. I've always been a reader of blogs. I used to love like beauty blogs, fashion blogs. I even follow a few mommy blogs. I've just always been really passionate or just really interested in like blogs and YouTube. And it's just something that I would read, similar to how someone scrolls through a magazine for fun. Like I would kind of scroll through some blogs just for fun, just for like mindless entertainment. I've always wanted to start a blog, but I was always too shy to do so until one day I was sitting in my apartment with my former roommate and I was like, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to start a blog. She was like, we have a test coming up in a week and a half. And I was like, yeah, it's fine. like, it's going to be a hobby. And I started this blog. It was called 3,000 Miles because I'm about 3,000 miles away from home. Initially, it started out as just me documenting my life in medical school. And I think that's what caused it to build a lot of traction. I shared a lot of admissions tips. I volunteer in medical school with the admissions. I help with interview days. I work with the post-bac students on a pre-medical mentorship program where the post-bac students, I lead workshops for them every month for them to prepare to submit their AMCAS in June. So I had a lot of experience and knowledge in the medical admissions, and I just wanted to share like free resources because I realized like not everyone had access to really great pre-med counselors like I had. And so that was my initial focus of the blog. Over time, it became really popular. Most of the time people reach out to me, they say, hey, I found your blog on Pinterest, or hey, I found your blog on Google when I was searching like how to study for the MCAT. That's usually, so there's something about those posts that are really popular. But over time, I realized like there's more to my life than just medical school. Like, yes, I'm a medical student, but I'm also, I love photography, I love to cook, I love to bake, I love to travel. And I really wanted my blog to just highlight the fact that you can be in medical school, you can be successful, but you don't have to do things the traditional way. You could take time off, you could pursue another degree, you can have unique interests and hobbies, and medicine doesn't have to consume your life. And I think I kind of did the blog as a like to fight back against that. Medical school, the stereotypical medical student is just so obsessed with medical school. If you're not worried about getting in, you're worried about staying in, and you're worried about your block exams and your shelf exams and taking the boards, and it's so consuming. And I just wanted no parts of that. I wanted to be able to, and I think I mentioned this earlier, like as a pre-med, I did things backwards because I really just wanted to hold on to my freedom. And I'm like, I don't want to be the pre-med that's always locked in the library. I want to have fun. And I felt the same way about medical school. I was like, I don't want to be the med student that's just always in the library, always studying. I want to show that you can have, you know, diverse interests and pursue them and still be a great student and still turn out to be a great doctor. And so my blog has definitely evolved over time. I've had less time nowadays to write in it. Surprisingly, I've had less time in my MBA program
Really?
than I did in medical school. I think it's just that I do a lot more during my days. So when I come home, I'm like less inclined to like write a blog post now. But I do still keep it up, and I am in the process of also like revitalizing it and rebranding it and bringing it back to be even bigger and better than it was in the past few years. So
Okay, sounds good. We'll link to it from the show notes. How do you
okay.
see how do you see your career evolving after you finish at UCLA Drew?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting question. So I have a lot of interest in healthcare. Right
That's
now,
for
I'm actually
sure.
myself and four classmates are actually applying right now to be part of the business creation option at UCLA Anderson. And we are currently working on building a company that we would like to see go live after our MBA graduation. So how do I see myself after graduation from medical school in 2021? Ideally, I would see myself as a co-founder of a company that ideally has funding, crossing my fingers, that we've raised enough capital by then. But I see myself being like a co-founder. I see myself being a resident. I think in the long term, I probably see myself being a serial entrepreneur. I am really passionate about kids, especially kids with developmental disabilities. I would like to do a fellowship in developmental behavioral pediatrics. And I see myself practicing, but also having multiple startups on the side. Like, I see myself just being a serial entrepreneur. So I love the process of creating and innovating. So I just see myself, creating unique products and solutions for people that wouldn't otherwise have a solution available to them. And then creating another one and another one and another one.
So you see
um,
yourself much more as a like you say as a serial entrepreneur than as a clinician. Is that am I understanding you correctly, or you're not sure?
yes and no. I mean, I definitely would like to stay in the entrepreneur space. It's definitely, I feel like when I got to business school and got involved with the Price Center at UCLA and the entrepreneurship club at UCLA Anderson, during my MBA. I definitely found my people and my niche there. But there is something to be said about, I didn't go to medical school for no reason. And I am still very passionate about working with kids. And so, I don't know, I kind of feel like I have the power to build a career however I want to. And so hopefully I will be able to make time to do a little bit of both.
Okay. All right.
Mhm.
What would you have liked me to ask you?
What would you like me? Um, Ooh, that's a good question. I guess I guess I would have liked you to ask me, maybe like what's been the highlight of just my
Okay.
experience so far.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's been the highlight?
I will say, I think the highlight of my experience has been forming this business creation option team with some of my MBA classmates. There are people who are so passionate about healthcare. Me and two of my classmates, we connected because all three of us were women interested in healthcare. We were interested in creating scalable solutions that were impactful and fulfilled the need in the healthcare space. And one of the highlight has been they both have worked in healthcare before starting business school. And one of the highlights has just been seeing how you don't have to be a clinician to have an impactful or meaningful role in the space of healthcare and medicine. And also to see the collaboration. There's some MDs that are actually in my program. There are computer scientists in my program. There's people who have worked in healthcare before in my program. And just seeing like the interdisciplinary collaboration has really just opened my mind to like a lot of possibilities that are available out there. Um, and so that's just been really exciting. And I would recommend, if anyone, like, we talk about interdisciplinary teams when we're in the hospital, between nurses and social workers and doctors and therapists and all this stuff. But I think the business world gets a bad rep. A few people have like made comments like, "Oh, you want to get an MBA because you just want to make money. You don't want to be like a broke doctor paying back $1 million of debt or something." And like, no, that's not true. And I think being in business school made me realize that like there are impactful ways to be in business, and it's not just about the profits, and there are ways to create meaningful and tangible solutions in the healthcare space. And
Sure.
I wish more people would. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean that if you have a business and you're not serving a societal need, I think you have an ethical problem. But otherwise,
Yeah.
most
So
businesses are there to serve.
yeah, and so I'm actually in a social entrepreneurship class right now.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so it's basically about not just the financial reward, but the social and ethical return that you can get from business. And it's just been really eye-opening just to really be able to see like, okay, I can do both. And I don't have to feel like I'm compromising on my morals or my values, or the values that a physician should uphold just because I want to do business. Like there is a way to do ethical and sustainable business practices, and
Right.
it just was really eye-opening for me. So
I recently read a book by Seth Godin. Some of you have heard of him. And he defined marketing really as effective marketing as a form of service. But anyways, Trisha, I think we're just about out of time. I want to thank you so much for
yes,
sharing your
yes.
story and insight and being incredibly generous and gracious with your time. Where can listeners
Oh,
find you online, learn more about you, or read your blog?
yes, yes. I mean, my blog is up. It's www.3000milesblog.com, all spelled
Well, I'll link to it. I'll link to it so you don't have to spell it.
out.
We'll link to Trisha's blog as well as to other resources related to this podcast from accepted.com/316. Listener, thank you too for joining Trisha Mathelier and me for Admission Straight Talk's 316th episode. Final reminder and a favor. Remember to download your free copy of The Ultimate Guide to Secondary Essay Questions from Top Med Schools so that you can pre-write at least some secondary essays and be ready for the secondary application flood that will hit once your application is verified. And the favor, if you find the show worthwhile, please tell a friend about Admission Straight Talk. They'll thank you, and so do I. Thanks again for coming. This is Admission Straight Talk, produced by Accepted, and I'm your host, Linda Abraham. I'll talk to you again next week.
Our theme music is provided by podcastthemes.com.